Hello, I am Sean Mazzini, and I will be presenting for you today about the historical figure Giuseppe Mazzini. Thank you for tuning in for my presentation, and I will now begin. General notes. Giuseppe Mazzini was born on the 22nd of June in 1805. He lived for 66 years, and he passed away on March 10th in 1872. Mazzini was a well-known politician, journalist, and activist in Italy. He was considered a main player in the Italian revolutionary movement and also played a significant role in the unification of Italy. As an Italian nationalist and an advocate of social democratic republicanism, Mazzini laid the groundwork for the movement of popular democracy in a republic state. Mazzini's ideals and work throughout his life influenced several Republican movements across Europe and Italy. His influence eventually found its way across the globe and was said to have touched the minds of important figures such as Woodrow Wilson and Mahatma Gandhi. Early life. Mazzini was born in Genoa, Italy. At the time, Genoa was under the rule of the French Empire. Mazzini's father, Giacomo Mazzini, was a university professor. Mazzini's mother, Maria Drago, was well known for her beauty. Interestingly enough, Mazzini's parents differed in their religious views, as well as political. His mother was a religious Jansenist, and his father was a Jacobin. At a young age, Mazzini excelled in school, particularly in the area of literature and politics. He went on to the university at age 18 to study law. He eventually graduated in 1826 and became a lawyer. At the time, Mazzini also had a large interest in writing, so he wrote and published an essay in 1827. Also in 1827, Mazzini traveled to Tuscany and became a member of the Carbonari. The Carbonari was a secret association with political ties and aims. This eventually landed him in prison on Halloween of 1827. In 1831, he was released and then exiled. Life in Marseille. After his exile, Mazzini moved to Marseille, which was typical for Italian exiles. He eventually became well-liked among the other Italians living in Marseille and even found himself a lover. In 1832, he supposedly had a son with his lover, but it was not 100% certain that the child was Mazzini's. The child later passed away in 1835. In 1833, Mazzini and his lover left for Switzerland. Young Italy. While in Switzerland, Mazzini went on to create a political society called Young Italy. Young Italy was a secret society that promoted a single, independent, republican nation. Mazzini believed that his group would eventually create an uprising that would unify Italy. The political party had success in Tuscany, Abruzzi, Sicily, Piedmont, and Liguria. In 1833, the party had around 60,000 members. With this many members, Mazzini attempted an insurrection that spread in Chambéry, Alessandria, Turin, and Genoa. Though, the government stopped the plot before it could mount a real traction. The government also executed 12 participants of the insurrection, and Mazzini's best friend ended up killing himself. Mazzini himself was sentenced to death. This setback was tough, but it did not stop him, and he mounted another insurrection in 1834. The plan this time was to begin the plot in Piedmont and Genoa. However, the troops in Piedmont quickly shut things down. Mazzini was eventually arrested and then exiled from Switzerland. He then was released and imprisoned in Paris, and was released again under the promise that he would now move to England. Life in London. In early 1837, Mazzini moved to London. At this point in his life, Mazzini was very discouraged. He was so confident and determined with his ideologies, yet he struggled at bringing about the same drive in the people who surrounded him. He kept fighting, though, and made 3 other organizations while in Switzerland. These organizations included Young Germany, Young Poland, and Young Switzerland. These new organizations were under the main organization of Young Europe. Young Europe's aim was the unification and liberation of several nations within Europe. While at London, Mazzini camped out and began writing numerous letters to his supporters and friends across Europe. He was using London sort of as a base of operations, but he was not conducting any uprisings there. Rather, Mazzini organized others to do his bidding by writing letters. Eventually, the British Parliament caught on and began opening and reading his letters, though this actually ended up working in Mazzini's favor because it caused outrage, especially from the British liberals. Some success. Mazzini finally found some success during the First Italian War of Independence. During this period, Mazzini jumped around from place to place, going wherever he thought was most needed. He eventually became the founder of the Action Party, which many consider the first organized political party in the history of Italy. In 1849, Rome was declared a republic, and Mazzini was appointed a member of the Triumvirate, along with Carlo Armellini and Aurelio Saffi. Mazzini was quick to show his wits and great administrative capabilities once he took the role. He showed this through social reform. Though, as the French army was deemed to come back and take over, Mazzini then fled to Marseille, and then from Marseille he snuck into Switzerland. Later years. Mazzini spent his time in Switzerland, constantly hiding from the police. Then, he eventually found his way into London again. From there, he founded another association, Amici d'Italia. In 1852 and 1853, he supported 2 failed riots, and these failures did not help his prestige. In 1856, he returned to Genoa and tried to organize a series of uprisings. Because of this, he was condemned to death once more. This was a significant turning point in Mazzini's career because from here on out, he turned away from the front lines and spent more time in the background. His ideologies and drive were then passed on to Victor Emmanuel II and Camillo Benso. In 1858, he founded a journal in London. Later years continued. In 1859, Mazzini signed a manifesto against the alliance formed between Piedmont and the Emperor of France. This in turn helped begin the Second War of Italian Independence. The Second War of Italian Independence ended up creating the Kingdom of Italy in 1861 under the Savoy monarchy. There was finally a unified Italy, but Mazzini frequently spoke out against how this unification was being achieved. He did not particularly like the monarchy of Savoy. In 1867, Mazzini refused a seat in the Chamber of Deputies. In 1870, he attempted a rebellion in Sicily, and he was arrested once again. He was later freed that year, and in 1872, Mazzini died from pleurisy. Pleurisy is inflammation of the membranes around the lungs, and that leads to other complications. Mazzini died at the age of 66 in Pisa, and his funeral was held in Genoa. His funeral was said to have over 100,000 attendees. Ideology. Mazzini was an Italian nationalist. He was a big supporter of republicanism and a united, independent Italy. Mazzini was outspoken against Marxism, and he hated the concept. He claimed that it was a dreadful perversion of utilitarianism, which did not go along with Mazzini's own ideas of Unitarianism. Mazzini also criticized the liberal principles of the Enlightenment, specifically individualism. Individualism focused on the moral worth of the individual, and Mazzini claimed it was atheist-like. In 1871, Mazzini condemned the socialist revolt in France. Karl Marx did not like this and became a regular critic of Mazzini and his ideologies. Mazzini greatly liked the ideals of Saint Simonian, including industrialism. One of Mazzini's own ideas that he held was on thought and action. He believed that thought and action were coupled together, and that thought must always be followed by action. This thinking explains a lot of Mazzini's attempts at revolution and his persistence to never give up the fight. Mazzini was also a big advocate of women's rights, and he believed that if a nation was to be truly democratic, there must be equality between men and women. Thank you for listening to my report on Giuseppe Mazzini. Here's the last page, which has my bibliography and my sources. Thank you so much.